Hello, everyone. Google and people who are Googling in the world somewhere vast. My name is Sasha Jenkins, and I am here with this gentleman here who is from Queens, went to the same lackluster junior high school in Queens, and for me, it's really powerful to see him and the success he has. And I told him recently, I had the good fortune of seeing him perform at the Kennedy Center, which I'll talk about later. But, you know, when he was on stage in front of a 80-piece orchestra, you know, performing these songs that you guys are here to celebrate and learn about, it was, you know, I had flashbacks of my junior high school stage that he attended, and to see him at the Kennedy Center really says a lot, not only about where hip hop has come, but where Nas has come from and where he is, and it's a real testament to why we're all here today. So give the brother another round of applause. Who let the dogs out? So, you know, I was, you know, joking with him backstage. I mean, I'm looking down now, my man has Timbos, you know, and I said to him, it feels like in '94, he did an amazing front flip and landed on his feet. And here we are in 2014, and it's like he did a backflip, landed on his feet. And I've been sort of loosely in the music business for some years, writing about it, producing things relative to music, and I've never seen an album that is 20 years old still have such a frenzied interest coming from so many different people. You know, I was saying to him, like, how does it feel? It's almost like this Illmatic is a brand new record in 2014.
Well, I'm happy that you are here. And it feels like, today feels like 1994. And what I mean is, like, it feels like a whole new beginning for me. It's just my little way of looking at things today because of the reissue of the record. So, yeah, it takes me back.
Takes you back how? Like
just the people who was around me making this record. I think about them, the people who are in the studio with me, hanging out with me, listening to the record, the works in progress. Yeah, the works in progress, and telling me their opinions while I'm working on the songs. It takes me back to riding around with no license, and it's in Harlem and Brooklyn and the Bronx, and my first car, Lexus GS 300, and no license, and excited with a Nakamichi system, and it came with the car, and it was just like going in from hanging with my boys' cars, in my boys' cars, listening to the songs as I was making them, and then when it was done, and then getting my first car and then riding in that with my boys, and just going all the way around New York, and it just brings me back to those fun times.
Eating Chinese food, hairy chicken wings.
When I got my first car, I still had the Chinese food, but I ate better Chinese food.
Nice.
Yeah.
So one thing, I've been thinking about it a bit, and again, having this conversation about front flips and back flips, and to me, and we have microphones. At some point, people can weigh in specifically on Illmatic-related questions, but it feels like because the climate in hip hop has changed so much, and that intelligence is actually valued, it feels like that's why Nas's work, why Illmatic is still uber relevant today, because of the level of intelligence and thoughtfulness that he put into his lyrics and his delivery, and the music that supported it. To me, it feels like hip hop in general now and the people who create hip hop and the culture around hip hop and the culture that hip hop fuels, intelligence is something that's really valued. Where when you came out, you were a real jewel, and you still are. But now it feels like we're encouraging more young people to be intelligent.
Yeah, I get with that. If you think about Kendrick Lamar, where he's at with his lyrics, and you know that this kid's got some sense. You know, he's got something to say. You know, he knows how to tell his story. He's clear about his perspective, and he still flows, you know, like an animal. So same with Schoolboy Q and the rest of the guys you showed on that you guys have on the film, Tech Nine, J-Rock. These guys, you can tell they're street guys, but these are the guys that got some sense, and I love it because the guys before me had a lot to give. You know what I mean? And so I took from that, and then I give it out, and then it just keeps going.
Well, talk a little bit about, you know, some of the guys who had a lot to give. Like, you know, personally, I'm from Astoria. I take pride in Super Lover C and Casanova Rudd. And I threw that out at you because I hear a little bit of that influence in there. Can you talk about like some of the people who have helped create this miraculous flow that you have?
Man, I mean, it's just like, you know, you listening to these guys and you're thinking to yourself, it's magic. These guys have this magical gift to do what they're doing, and you want to do it. You know, the guys you just mentioned, Super Lover C, Casanova Rudd, MC Shan, Chuck D, Rakim, Coogee Rap, Kane. It's just so many guys that opened my head up about a lot of things. So I knew if I got into rap, I wouldn't be accepted unless my presentation, my first record, was accepted by those guys. So I had that in mind when I made the record, that Coogee Rap had to love it, or else I failed.
Well, talk about that, because you are from Queensbridge, which many people think is an actual like town when it's an actual housing project, and it is a town in itself in that its own community center and supermarket, et cetera, but it was also home to so many really important MCs. It was a home of Marley Marl. So when you say stuff like Coogee Rap really had to like it, you could have run into him at the bodega.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about that sort of the legacy of where you came from and how that really pushed you or inspired you to do what you wound up doing.
Yeah, so, you know, I had my heroes. I go to the store, record store, when they had record stores, and buy these guys 12-inch singles and buy their albums, and then I would see them because, like Sasha said, DJ Marley Marl, who's a hip-hop pioneer producer from my neighborhood, was the guy behind the production from Biz Markie, the Big Daddy Kane, Roxanne Shante, the Juice Crew. And I would see Coogee Rap signing autographs, or MC Shan shooting a video on the hill on the projects. I would just see MC Shan washing his Audi, and like, it just, you know, it made me feel like I'm in the right place. I'm around this energy right here that, you know, is going to pass through me, and at some point it's going to be my turn, you know, at the stage, and when I get there, I got to do it right. You know what I mean? So I saw a lot of good in those guys, and I saw their mistakes, the chinks in the armor. I saw their mistakes were lessons for me. When I saw the careers start to decline, or I saw an artist, you know, messing with drugs too much, and anything that was, you know, not good for his career, I saw it mess him up. So for me, I said, I don't want that. I don't want to be a rap star where, you know, they're gonna watch you and judge you, and the slightest thing you do, you fell off. I said, the way I want to approach music is gonna be just the way I am. It's gonna be the Timberlands, it's gonna be the army jackets, just the way we are outside. I wanted to put that into the record, from the packaging to the songs. So that was how I was different from the guys before me. They were great, amazing guys. So I had to tell a story that was my own. I couldn't be Coogee Rap and Eric B. and Rakim and Big Daddy Kane because these guys were superstars with the big chains and the Rolls Royces. And that didn't come till later for me. But yeah, my approach was to talk about that kid on the corner, the kid that was, you know, I wanted that kid that who wasn't on stage. I wanted the stage to come to him on the block.
But before you became famous, before like today, he's like the #1 trending topic on Twitter and all that, you had infamy in the projects. That was probably your first taste of, yo, little man is nice. Like, is there a poignant moment you remember where you were at the bodega, at the laundromat, whatever, just walking around and just hearing like people buzzing about you, like, oh, I heard, because this is before records. This is when there's just ciphers on 12th Street or whatever, and people just knew you were nice.
No, nobody really, it was a small group that really knew I rhymed. I never really let everybody know I wasn't the outgoing guy. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't looking for attention. I used to watch all the other guys do it, and I didn't know where they were headed with that. I'm like, okay, it's gonna burn out. You know, it's like I was more to myself. So when it did get out there that I was that I rapped, when it really got out there was like 1991 when Live at the Barbecue came out with Main Sauce. Right. That's when the neighborhood knew that I rapped.
So do you remember like the first time hearing it on the radio, or what was like a poignant moment when you felt like, you know, Live at the Barbecue was popping, like I might have a chance, things were starting to move?
Yeah, I was walking through my neighborhood and I couldn't find none of my friends one night, so I just went walking up the hill and down. I seen a bunch of the older guys, you know, together, hanging out, talking. There was a car, music blasting from the car, it was a radio, late. And they were older than me, but, you know, I didn't know where else to go hang out. I was bored, so I just kind of hung out where they were at, and then the song came on, Live at the Barbecue. At first, I thought I was tripping, and then I'm like, it's really coming on. The song really came on. And, you know, these guys are having a good time. They're talking amongst themselves. And, well, they're loud. And I'm trying to get one of them to notice this is me on the radio. And they didn't even listen to me, man. They were so caught up, you know, so I just blocked them out. And then I'm just there sitting and like hearing myself, just smiling at myself. And I walked away, and I probably got home and made some phone calls. Yeah.
Did you have a beeper at that point?
Yeah.
All right. So someone might, you called people, you missed them, then they beeped you.
Yeah.
You said, all right, son, I'll try you answering machines and stuff like that.
Something like that.
You know, the album is such a rich portrait of what your life was in the projects. And, you know, people in Australia, people in New Zealand, people in Switzerland now, you know what Queensbridge is or know what your experience was. But while there's this great fascination with projects and project life, sometimes it feels like people who are from the outside have like a one-dimensional kind of perspective on what project life is. Can you just tell us like the full scope of the people who live in the projects? It's not just crackheads and crack dealers and rappers.
Right. There's other people too. Especially coming out of the 80s into the 90s. The 80s was so much fun for me, and the 90s too. But yeah, there's a neighborhood, there's a community. You know, you protected your community. You learned to protect your community by the older people that were out there when you were a kid. You know, if you were coming from a neighborhood, you were a little bit too far away from the neighborhood, it get a little sketchy, and you gotta, you know, people notice you're not from out there, and then you know, next thing you know, you're getting chased. So it felt good to get closer and closer back to your neighborhood, right? Then you know, you see somebody that can go call somebody, yo, somebody's after my man over there. So, damn, where was I?
I'm talking about community.
Community. So that sense of community is so important because you got all these families and you grow up around each other. We play football together. We play basketball together. We joke on each other. You know, holidays, whatever. It's just this great community, and we spend a lot of time with each other. It becomes like a family, you know, and that was a real good side of it. Like, you always hear, like, I remember I did VH1. I didn't want to do it behind the music because I said, please don't narrow it down to just me talking like hood stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because then it makes it the typical rap story, crack dealing, I walked outside and it was this and it was that. But it's hard not to tell that story because people need to hear those truths. They need to hear what was going on across the bridge from Madison Avenue. They need to hear the truth. They need to hear the ugly side because that's how we fix the future. You can't ignore it. You can't sweep it under the rug and let this injustice happen in this great city right here. You gotta, so I became a voice, and you know, yeah, there's nice things going on, but I had to let you know what I was going through as a kid. So it was a balance. It was I guess survival. It was survival. I walked outside one morning and I heard some shots and seen some guys running and pointing guns at each other, and a young girl came. She was coming out of her building, and I must have been about 15 years old. She was probably 13. And she had got shot in her stomach, and it just missed me. And she was the nicest girl. She went to my elementary school before. I knew her brother. If they had listening somewhere out there, hi, she's all right now, hi. But I remember that as clear as yesterday, like it was yesterday, because it could have been me, and it would have changed my life so much as that young kid. And so here it is, you walking on this thing's parallel. It's like nice people, nice lives, nice jobs, but yet then there's another side. So I tried to mix that up. I know you said talk about project people. I'm not an expert on project people.
No. But the diversity, you know, these people, they're grandmothers, they're people who drive the bus.
Right.
You know, hardworking, real people.
Good people, yeah. They help shape me too, absolutely.
So you know, a classic Illmatic line is, you know, the rap game reminds me of the crack game. So 20 years later, with all this experience, what made you, as a new artist coming in at that point, you know, coming out of this very heavy experience, and now you're brand new saying this on your first record? Like, what was it that made you feel that? Because that was like you felt that. I think that's why that line resonates with so many people. What was it?
It was because as I was getting off into the rap game, the shystiness, the shrewd business, the unloyal stuff, the fake stuff, the snake stuff, the money chase, it was really similar. It's really similar. So I never really trusted anybody, you know. I never really trusted anybody because I didn't trust me. If I didn't know what I was able to do to somebody at any moment, then what are they thinking? So I knew that someone, lawyers, whoever they was, I knew they would ice me in a minute, and I didn't trust any of them, you know, so I made that comparison.
And so how, in hindsight and in all that you've learned, you know, 20 years later, would you still equate it to that?
No, it's not. I don't even know what the crack game is no more. It's a whole different thing today. I mean, back then it was really, it was almost like, you know, concentrated areas were coming out talking about life. Compton, Queensbridge, Best-Stuy. It's a global thing. It's a global thing now where everybody has their voice, and you could be heard from. It's about expressing yourself. You know what I'm saying? If you're from Detroit, you got your story for Detroit that we all need to hear. So it's open now. It's an open game. Yeah.
So speaking of global and travel, you're this kid from Queensbridge. The rap game is like the crack game. You're going through these experiences, and eventually you're touring, you're seeing the world, and you're seeing the effect that this stuff that we did as kids, that was just a part of our communication as young people in New York City, is now something that people around the world have embraced. Can you relate any stories of being in Istanbul or somewhere really far away and really feeling like, wow, this thing that we did as kids has such a profound effect on people so far away in your travels?
In the beginning or overall?
Overall, I mean.
Yeah. Hip hop took me all over the world. Places I never wanted to go. Places I dreamed about going. It took me all over, and people love it. People, doesn't matter where you're from, they relate, they know it's theirs. They know that that music represents them. It's honest for the most part. Its origins, where it comes from, it's based, the foundation of hip hop is honest. They know that. They know it speaks for them. It sounds like them. No matter what language or whatever, it's our music. It's music of young people, people my age too, but young people, they claimed it. And I've been to New Zealand, I've been to Nigeria, I've been to Australia, Tokyo, and everywhere. It's that same love. It's that same. They're like purists too. They're like it's like a family. It's a big rap community, and they're serious, and they'll look you up and down, and try to look through you to see if it's honest with you. I've been to Tokyo and seen fans look at me like, are you the truth? Are you over here playing games? Like, I've been places where they have that pure heart for it. So it's everywhere.
One thing Nas hasn't mentioned in terms of his business ventures is he's marketing this bottle that's essentially a fountain of youth. Because so many people have been asking for the product now that he's been out promoting the record. And you know, front flips, he looks the same. Is it really him? Like, I'm the guy in Japan. Are you real? You know what I'm saying? The guy looks the same. Like, what is your beauty regimen? People the streets want to know. Because there are a lot of other guys who are 40 with Timberlands who look 48, 53. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, you can purchase this very soon. He doesn't want to give out the ingredients. It's all good. That's how he makes money. Colonel Sanders had his, chicken recipe. He's got his beauty recipe. So lyrics. One of my favorite lyrics, and it's hard to even. It's almost like it's simple yet complex, and almost like a math puzzle that you can never solve, or it's the math puzzle that you want to solve, and you'll spend time. I spend time actually thinking about the weight of this line, and it is, I need a new nigga for this black cloud to follow.
While it's over me, it's too dark to see tomorrow.
Yes. I mean, you think about the weight of, how old were you when you wrote that?
Somewhere around 18. Yeah.
I mean, that's a very heavy, people have different feelings about the N-word. Personally, I'm not necessarily a fan of it, but in the context of where we come from and how we express ourselves, it has its place and its value. It's not for everyone, as we know. But the way the personification of how you described what you described, to me, is heavy. I mean, that's saying that it's almost, on one level, it's saying that society has labeled you a nigger on one hand, and you have this black cloud over you that makes it so hard for you to see what the future is.
Right. and I need a new nigga for this black cloud to follow. You know, it's like almost like a blues man singing a song about his life, and he's older, you know, a lot older than 18, you know. That's what strikes me about lines like that. Like, why was I feeling like that at such a young age? You know, it's just, you know, life hits you in different ways and you deal with it in different ways. I felt like I was speaking for a lot of people when I wrote that.
And now that you look back on it, do you feel like you have a better understanding of why you were in that place or why you felt that way, or?
You know, I think I was born with sort of a fast life thing in my genes, because I felt like it could be over any minute. So go after it now. There are no rules. There's no rules, because the guys with the rules were slain. The guys who played by the rules got dealt with. So there's no one to trust. You know, I lived in Queens. I lived in, you know, it was getting hot, you know, so that's how I felt like talking.
So, speaking of language and the N-word, you know, you performed at the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's got this line, kidnap the president's wife without a plan. I noticed you didn't kick that one in D.C. I guess that's smart. Could have got hemmed up behind that.
Word.
But it was interesting to me, you sitting back, listening to you and taking in the whole experience. Like, first of all, there was an elder, white woman who was a page who was like ushering people in, and she was like dancing in the aisles. And then there was one kid in the front row who like stood up and was pointing at this guy and going line for line with him. And it was, there were people who were just into classical music. I mean, it was such a, broad range of experiences in that room.
Yeah. It was like,
Oh, no. Okay. So bringing it back to you, I thought it was interesting in that you let the N-word rock in certain instances, but others you didn't.
yeah.
Is that an extension of growth and being a dad or the audience? Like, talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I said it, I had to say the records the way I said them back then, but because of the orchestra and the strings, the music is real softer. So now you hear me 1,000 times more stronger because these soft violins are playing, and my language is harsh. And in part of the show, I said something about that. I said, back then we were more rebellious in our music. Rebel music was the thing. It was Public Enemy. It was Ice Cube. It was rage. It was America's youth in rage, and that was the most talked about rap. It was these guys with their outcries about their conditions. So that inspired me. So my lyrics back then were like that. They were rebellious. They were enraged. They were lit. They were lit on fire. So I told the audience, that's why I'm cursing y'all out right now to violins. But musically, it took me somewhere else. It was really classy. It was a beautiful audience, very diverse. And I couldn't imagine what they were thinking watching me, play with this mostly all-white orchestra who probably doesn't listen to rap. Turns out they did listen to rap. Turns out, they were really cool people, the National Symphony Orchestra. They were really professional, really amazing. And it kind of like took me to another place with music and what I can do with music.
Well, the energy was great because you can tell they had never experienced that kind of energy, you know,
Yeah,
in a live performance.
Yeah.
Another lyric, you know, just these are the things that just randomly pop in my head during the day. I'll be walking down the street and I'll say to myself, understandable smooth shit that murderers move with. What are they moving with?
This music. I said the Thief's theme, play me at night, they won't act right. The fiend of hip hop got me stuck like a crack pipe. So in those same lyrics, so everything is woven into the lyrics. Is you know, everything I saw, everything I was around became the material. So yeah.
And the producers on the album, I mean, that was another really radical departure from what was going on in hip hop. You had, you know, all of these amazing guys, you know, teaming up to give you the best to create something that was, you know, so standout. I mean, tell the audience a bit about how that came to be.
Well, mentioning Chuck D, Public Enemy, and Ice Cube, they had their producers. They had the Bomb Squad did Public Enemy, Dr. Dre did NWA. Sir Jinx then started doing Ice Cube. Everybody had their producer. De La Soul was produced by De La Soul. Tribe Called Quest was produced by Tribe Called Quest. Who was gonna produce me, right? So I knew one producer, Large Professor, and he had relationships with the rest of them. I didn't want my record to have one sound. I was a big fan of all these amazing guys, so I needed them to give me the music so I could say what I needed to say. And at first people thought it wouldn't happen because that wasn't happening, especially for new artists. But I was lucky, and they were into doing this record. And I would tell people, yeah, so who's doing your record? Oh, Pete Rock, Q-Tip, DJ Premier, and they look at me like, yeah, all right. And I'm like, nah, that's who's doing the record, you know? So after a while, that became the buzz. Oh, you know who's doing this man's record? And the anticipation started to grow because people couldn't imagine what would this, never heard an album by me, what could this guy be doing with these guys? What is he doing? And I knew I had him because from that point, that was already a thing going around the music industry. It's like he's working with these guys. So I had the focus on me from that point. So very lucky, man. Don't underestimate luck. I was lucky.
Humble gentleman right here. So are there beats that these guys offered up that you look back now like, damn, I should have spit on that wound up getting, you know, farmed out to other people or?
No. Nah, because every track was specifically for me. Every track they did. There were some beats that Pete Rock gave me that wound up on him and CL Smooth's album later. He just gave them to me to just see if I liked them before they finished their record. And I don't even know if he remembers, but I remember when his album came out, I was like, oh, I had this beat, I had that beat. Nah, they made all the beats for me. The only thing is once I was done and Biggie went to work with Premier, and I went to see Premier, and Premier played me Unbelievable by Biggie, I was so mad at Premier. I was so mad, bro. Like, yeah. Yeah, so no, they took care of me.
What, after the cycle of Illmatic happened, you had done the record, you toured, you had done everything, and you were on the verge of creating your next album that was written. What was running through your mind? Like, how did you feel about where you were? Were you still hungry? Did you feel like there are things that you hadn't achieved with the record? You know, what was your mind state before getting into your next album?
Yeah, I felt there was things I didn't achieve. There was a lot of new guys coming out that was making a lot of noise, and it made it real for me. And then B.I.G. went platinum, and my record didn't even go gold. But Everyone talked about it, but it didn't go gold. B.I.G. went platinum. I saw a way to get to platinum. I saw a way to beat all the naysayers. All of them said he can't do it again. He can't make a big record. He can't make a top 40 record. He can't get to that stage. He can't get to the MTV Awards or whatever was, the place to be when you were supposed to make it. They had doubts. He's in the hood. He's not thinking like that. He can't do that. So if I was to come back, now there's a notorious B.I.G. on the scene. So you can't just come back just okay. You can't just come back and just be like, make your little record and that be it. No, you had to come where B.I.G. was at or go higher or you failed. It wasn't like today. Like if I didn't come out and get a platinum record, get a big record, get MTV, do those things, I don't care what the rest of the world would have said. Biggie would have been like, you're done. And I would have had to let it go. That's how it was. I would have been written in history as the guy who failed. And those guys motivated me. That's one thing I miss about Biggie. He was a class act, but he pushed you, and he wanted that top spot. That was his spot. So if you were going for the top, you were walking in his territory. Even though I was out before him, he came and took everything. So.
Well, you influenced him. I mean, he had a baby on his record as well.
Sure, but he killed it. He killed it. So now, forget what I did. It's Biggie's world. So I had to come back and show the people who are watching, I'm still in the game.
So what's the conversation like? You run into Biggie, you guys both have turkey sandwiches, you talking like, yo, your shit's nice, I'm feeling it, but yo, I'm gonna take you out, son. Like, what gave you that sort of playful intensity? You said he was a class act, but what, was it things that he said or he did? Like, I'm trying to put people in that era of you guys.
It was little subtle things. Like, it was Biggie without diamond bracelets and pinky rings. And then it was Biggie with the diamond bracelet and pinky ring, #1 record. Everyone's playing the music out of the car. Everybody loves him. Everybody knows the music. Outside of a club, nighttime, New York City, I walk up there in between second and first album, and Biggie sees me and throws up his hand with the bone diamond bracelet and goes like this. And he goes, survival of the fit, only the strong survive. That's all he had to say to me. That's all he had to say. Everybody who was with me didn't even hear it, just me and him. That's all he had to say, and I knew what to do.
Did he say it with a smile, with a serious look? Did he blink? Like, how did Biggie do it?
All of that. Smile,
nice.
Serious, everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we have mics on both sides. If you guys want to throw out some Illmatic-esque, relevant kinds of questions. This is very Phil Donahue, bringing it back.
Yeah, you're taking me back right here, man. This is crazy.
This guy thought he was just going to be in a conference room. He's like, oh, this is where it's happening? Where's everybody at?
Hey, Nas, how's it going?
What's up?
Hey, not too much. Just first off, I want to start out and say thank you for coming to Google. You're one of my, good out. To me, Illmatic is one of my top 3 rap albums of all time. So, thank you for making something that's so important.
Thank you, man.
So my question is, it's actually off of one of your lines. So, say, I sip the Dom P, watching Gandhi till I'm charged, writing in my book of rhymes, all the words past the margin. Then kind of fast forwarding, you also had the song called Book of Rhymes. I'm curious, just what's your creative style been like over the last 20 years? Streets Disciple came out 10 years ago. Do you still carry around a book of rhymes with you everywhere that you go? Kind of what is your your outlet like now?
You wanted to say, because I later said about Gandhi. You know what I mean? On the Book of Rhymes, Gandhi was a fool. Fight to the death.
Flights of Conquest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sip the Dom P watching Gandhi is trippy, right? Like I'm drinking champagne watching the guy who was opposite of that, right? Who was totally against what the champagne represents in a way, right? Capitalism, imperialism, right? I'd be thinking about some shit, man. I tell you. No, I don't have Book of Rhymes no more. I don't, man. I write and I write down notes in the iPhone, and yeah, no books no more. I wish I did. That's a thing that I really wish I could have the patience for, is to keep books of rhymes. But I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I'm preparing. I don't like to prepare. I don't want to think about it anymore. I take down my notes and I leave it there. I don't touch it till I get to the studio and then I go through it. But I don't want to prepare too much for songs. That may hurt me. That may be hurting me. I'm not saying that's good advice. It's just how I do it. Just what I do.
So when Lost Tapes 2 comes out, are you going to just take out a bunch of notes from your phone and just start reading off different things?
If I do, you gave me that idea.
Thank you.
He'll text Gandhi and send him some stuff.
Nas, once again, thank you so much for coming here. I wanted to sort of ask about, Illmatic. I feel like there's a lot of jazz influence, and I know your father was a jazz musician as well. It's just a big part of your music. Could you talk about sort of jazz and other genres of music and kind of how that influenced?
I used to hate jazz.
Really?
When I was a kid, I hated it because no. That's too strong of a word. I knew it was older people music. I knew that I'd get to it later, like I didn't like squash. I knew later I would like it, but what made me like jazz sooner than I probably normally would have, my pop, he brought me to hang around jazz guys and hear them talk and just watch these dudes, and him playing the music and him playing the radio station. I hear this old guy, Wolfman Jack, come on the radio station with his wild voice, and then other stations just rock and everything, and just saw him absorb the stuff that was on the radio. He didn't really rock with disco and all the other stuff that was happening. He was really into the other stuff. So I appreciate jazz now. I love jazz. I'm big on Miles Davis, Conda Blue, John Coltrane, Love Supreme, Art Blakey, Herbie. You know what I'm saying? So I'm big on jazz now, and I'm glad I had the early experience now. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in. I have a two-part question. The first part, I thought it was very interesting what you were saying about Pete Rock, so on and so forth. So I was wondering if you could talk a bit about your workflow with them. Would Pete Rock basically come up with a beat? And then I'm just asking because Illmatic is 40 minutes of incredibly tight lyrics to beats. And I'm just curious how you managed to make that work so damn well. And the second question is about your 2006 album, Hip Hop Is Dead, and basically looking at Illmatic today and seeing how it's such a sort of important album when we look back on the contemporary history of hip hop. I was wondering if you could just talk about that 2006 album a bit and sampling techniques and so on and so forth.
Well, going to Pete Rock, I was a lucky guy at a lucky time because I was at that point where the next generation was about to come on the scene. So a lot of people like Illmatic, and a lot of younger people might want to know what's the big deal about Illmatic. It was a number of things. It was one of the first of its kind to talk about life and that matter from hands-on, letters about guys in jail, your friends, you're writing letters to them and I'm writing you back. And that was for that moment, it wasn't a lot of that out. You know what I'm saying? Afterwards, a lot of it happened, and that's the direction of rap music flowed in that era, and what Wu-Tang was doing, and what B.I.G. was doing, and then everyone became focused on representing that street thing. Whereas you're naming the street corner, you're naming the lady that that lives upstairs, the real lady's name. You're putting your daughter's name in the record. You're putting real life experiences in the record, not just talking about a subject matter and nailing it, but you're really putting your life in it. That I came in with that. Wu-Tang came with that. Biggie came with that. So I was just a part of that time. That's one of the things that makes it special. Pete Rock was the newest out of Q-Tip and Premier. Gangstar had already been there. Tribe had already been there. Pete Rock and CL Smooth, he was producer for Heavy D. He was the guy, but behind the scenes, but you knew he was good. Now he was at the forefront with his own group. His records were out of here. Like, they were blowing up everywhere. And to get him was not easy. So the fact I got him, I don't know. I don't know. But they believed in me. They believed in hip hop. They believed in a new young guy coming on the scene, and they wanted to help me. And I remember Pete Rock put out "Down with the King" with Run DMC, that remix for that, and I was like, and then the "Shut 'Em Down" remix for Public Enemy. I was like, he's going to give me a beat, So I went after it, and I had to nail it. I couldn't play with his time. I couldn't play with none of those guys' times.
But they gave you incredible beats. And was there a back and forth like, hey, Pete Rock, I'm looking for this vibe. Can you do that for me?
I think in the beginning, I wanted something like what he was doing on his own, but he didn't listen to me. And he didn't have to. He knew what I needed, and he gave me The World Is Yours.
So it surprises me because the album is so coherent in terms of the vibe. So I guess congratulations to you for tying it all together.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Nas, big fan, and I think as you guys spoke about, Illmatic is timeless music, whether it's 1994 or 2014. And one of the things you touched upon, it seemed like, was that healthy competition. So you spoke about you and Biggie, and I know on some of your other albums you had addressed certain situations. It didn't necessarily sound like eating turkey sandwiches together. But I think my question is, and just looking, again, from 94 through today, that there were certain times where there would be that healthy competition, even just within New York, even just within Queensbridge, and where certain people you would engage with, and there would be that, again, I think bring everybody's game up a notch. And then there would be certain times where there wouldn't be that engagement, and people might say something you would ignore. And I would love if you can just shed any light into what would say, okay, this person, I'm going to engage with them. And then somebody like Cameron, where there was that, the back and forth from the Power 101 interview, or the 105 interview, and he had said on freestyles and songs, and it seemed you had ignored that one. So any insights into the competition, the healthy competition?
Yeah, I had said something about Cam that came out of nowhere. I was just really in a place where I was trying to start something with everybody. I was upset at that point, a lot of things in my personal life, and I wasn't looking for a response from. I knew there would be responses, but I was looking for what I was going to do next. I wasn't thinking about a response to anybody else. It was more like, what was I building myself up to do? Like, I was building myself up to do something that was not me. And so I didn't really hear the responses. The responses, the things I do respond on, were the things that seemed like they were supposed to happen. Like not me calling somebody out because I'm mad that day, and it didn't come from any place that was any good. So any other thing I would respond to would be something that was a lot heavier, a lot more serious.
You got him with Ether.
Okay.
Hi, thank you again for coming. A couple of us at lunch were talking about your visit today, and we kind of started talking about how it seemed like more hip-hop and rap artists than any other musicians seem to be more entrepreneurial and do things like mentor other musicians. Do you think that that's true? And if it is, why do you think that is?
You saying artists today mentor other artists?
Oh, no, we were talking about how it seems like hip-hop and rap artists do this kind of, they're more entrepreneurial and mentor other artists and musicians more than like other.
What's that?
Your man Boldy.
Oh, Boldy James in the house, yeah. Well,
We were kind of trying to, theorize on why that seemed to be the case. Do you think it is?
rock stars don't have to build businesses. It's not, rock stars are supposed to be anti-establishment. They're rebellious, their parents are usually white, and it seems like they didn't have it too hard. It's not always the case, not saying that, I'm just saying, it seems like, so it's cool when the rock star says, fuck the system, I'm not gonna sell out, I'm not gonna do this. They have the opportunity to say yes or no, because they can just cut their hair, put on a tie, and walk in and get a job. Us on the other end, we know we're not walking in to be the CEOs in this time frame. We were talking about like when hip hop first started, it's talking about unemployment. It's talking about no education. It's talking about drugs and police brutality with Melly Mel on the message. So the full achievement of somebody from that condition to make it in America, that story of that kid who came up single parent household, housing projects, drops out of school maybe, carries a gun maybe breaks the law here and there. That guy is doing that because he feels like he's not accepted in corporate America, even if he has the credentials. There's gonna be some bullshit on his way up the ladder. So it's so amazing to see that guy with $100 million. Because it's the proof that America works. It's the child of the slaves and the slave ancestry thing coming back into the American dream. And that story is scary, triumphant, beautiful, and scary again. So while the rocker, he says, nah, Mom, I don't want the meatloaf tonight, and I'm gonna go rock out with my guitar and shit, and fuck that, slapping the bass, man, slapping the bass. It's cool for him to do that while we do, oh, he don't want the job? Okay, let him play the guitar, and I'm gonna sell him the guitars. So it's a rap game, crack game. It's the hustle. It's the hustle spirit that once I get a foot in, I gotta take it all. We have more of a reason to want to start businesses, make our mommies proud and our grandmas proud and show them nothing could stop us. America offered it to us, we took it. It seemed like we was going off course, derogatory language, messed up words toward women and stuff like that, but then it made a right turn right up the right way. And that's how beautiful America is.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of rap game, I guess it's a rap here. But we have an amazing contest, Nas, you're familiar with.
Yes.
That we're running on massappeal.com.
Massappeal.com, for sure.
Wherein folks have the opportunity to submit their ideas for videos that they'd want to make for songs off of Illmatic, and people are making submissions. You're
Dope.
encouraging people to do that.
That's incredible. Whose idea was that?
Was it yours? Somebody's.
Can't remember.
Someone in Massappeal. So are we showing that clip?
Yeah, I'm showing that.
We're going to show a clip of actually something that Nas thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Represent is the soundtrack to a movie, but not just any movie, a very specific movie. Primo flipped what's perhaps the most obscure sample in hip-hop history in choosing the 1924 soundtrack to the silent film, The Thief of Baghdad. Now, the movie is based on 1001 Arabian Nights, a classic fairy tale, and tells the story of a thief who takes what he wants. That is until one night he comes across a sleeping princess. The story basically revolves around him trying to win the respect of the caliph, who's the princess's father, and in the end he liberates the city and becomes a prince. My idea for the video for Represent is to have a collaboration with both Nas and Jason Goldwatch, where we take elements of this 1924 silent film, which has now fallen into the public domain, and flip them visually the way Primo did with the beat, and kind of retell the story of Nas's experience in Queensbridge through the lens of The Thief of Baghdad.
So that's an example of someone who is making a submission at massappeal.com for the Nas Represent Illmatic contest. And you encourage all of your friends in the world to participate.
Yep.
Yes.
So that was his idea for Represent.
That's his idea,
For
yeah.
a 20-year-old song, and the sample is to a movie.
Yeah, the film is so old it's public domain, so his idea was to sort of incorporate the imagery from this movie that you can just jack all the images from. And as you were saying, that's
I like that.
reminiscent of what we do with hip hop. Samples. You don't have to clear those samples.
I like that.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for coming out, and
Thank you.
go out and buy 7 copies of this.